What if you clocked out from work only to find that work was life and life was work?
Wander with us.
Took everything I had to not interrupt you.
I appreciate the restraint.
I'd say any time, but it'd be a lie.
Oh no, I feel about that. I'm Bethany.
I am still Konr.
And this is Wonder With Us.
It is still mostly a podcast.
About the Twilight Zone. This one specifically is episode 23, A World of Difference. It originally aired March 11th, 1960.
Directed by Ted Post, who had 92 director credits to his name, 4 of which were episodes of The Twilight Zone.
Ted Post.
Ted Post.
What a remarkably unremarkable name.
It is. It's like a face you see in a crowd that you forget as soon as you lose sight of them.
It's a bad Where's Waldo game.
It's just, you know it's there. You know it exists. There ain't no reason to fucking remember it.
I saw this meme yesterday of like when you meet somebody for the first time. And so it was a cartoon drawing of person and person in one panel, cartoon style-esque. And said, "Hi, my name's Jim." And then the next panel was a guy in his brain with the name Jim and just ran it through a shredder.
Yup.
That is so relatable.
Every day.
All the time.
Every time I meet somebody who's not particularly interesting.
I mean, it doesn't.
Or even if they are interesting, I'm not going to remember your fucking name.
It doesn't have to be interesting either. This episode was duly written by the Brain Daddy Rod Serling and Richard Matheson.
That's not the Brain Daddy. Film editor was Joseph Gluck. He's back again. However, photography on this one is not...
George T. Clements?
It's not... that rude. Didn't even let me say it. No, photography on this one was brought to you by Harkness Smith.
In the way of cool names, this guy has a cool name.
Harkness.
It's definitely a departure from the common Smith.
From George.
Yeah.
Harkness.
We could get lost on that rabbit trail. The music in this episode was also by cool name owner Van Cleve.
Van Cleve. Not as cool as Harkness.
But it's not Ted Post.
No. But here's to you, Harkness. May something forever be in your favor.
IMDb says on this episode...
Tell me what IMDb says.
A businessman sitting in his office inexplicably finds that he's on a production set in a world where he is a movie star. Uninterested in the newfound fame, he fights to get back to his home and family.
Do you feel like that is a concise and accurate description of this episode?
Concise? Yes. Accurate? No. Only because it's very one-sided. Now, I feel like the explanation that IMDb gives is very leaning into what is expected, whereas the actual, episode... Well, for starters, the episode opens on an office scene, and a Mr. Curtis walks in, talks to his receptionist, then goes into a side room and is interrupted by the abrupt call of cut. He turns around to see a full production crew and a director sitting in a chair. And he has this, bewildered look on his face. That could easily be mistaken as an actor, 14 hours on a set, super exhausted. Does that make sense?
Yeah, they do a very interesting... So the IMDb description, I think it is perfectly reasonable for somebody who was told the actual plot of the episode and then told to break that down into a concise 2 sentences.
Sure.
I think that's probably the best you're going to get out of trying to keep a description of this episode that short.
Sure. And for posterity's sake, is it safe to assume that this article on IMDb was written pre-bots?
I couldn't tell you. I assume so. I assume IMDb is probably still employing people or implying a person. I don't know. It very well could be AI. That person probably lost their job to AI by this point.
Because it doesn't feel like AI writing.
No, and very few of them do. But yeah, so they do an interesting. They do so many interesting things on this show, and this is just another bit, like tiny bit of interesting in that they open the episode, as you said, with Mr. Curtis, and they do it in such a way that it feels like this is the episode. This is our character. Our character is living his life. The director yells cut. Mr. Curtis looks around, seems to notice he's on a film set in that moment. Although, if I'm being honest, that is me looking back knowing the plot. Because the first time watching, you wouldn't know that his surprise is, why am I on a film set? It does just look like he's tired and been working all day. Moments later, they bring in the twist of he starts acting kind of erratic and responding like somebody who just woke up to realize his life
is not what he thought it was.
Like he's being Truman Showed.
For younger listeners, that's punked before punked.
And for yet younger listeners, that's a show where Ashton Kutcher made himself and other people look like an asshole.
Oh man.
Yeah, that ain't a fresh reference anymore.
That made me feel so old. Damn it. Okay.
Oh, that was on Side by Side with Yo Mama, starring Fez from That 70s Show. Woof. Yeah, so it's a very interesting... Normally, in these episodes, we get a couple of minutes of story leading up to a vague reference to the plot. And we'll get some dialogue, a little bit of character development prior to them bringing in the big twist. Now, because it is a TV show, it is 20 some odd minute production, there's never a lot of time between introduction and here's the twist that is the plot. There's usually a little bit of time, and it's usually fairly straightforward, and like Monsters Do on Maple Street, for example. Power issues, car won't start, little bit of talking, kid introduces the idea of aliens, he's shot down. Before long, everybody thinks it's aliens.
And everybody's
boom, there's our hook, there's our big overarching, this is what this episode's going to be about. And then at the end, you'll light switch of here's your resolution, here's your cause. Should say here's your cause, because it's not always a resolution. It's usually not
for sure
a resolution as much as further questions, but
it really harkens back for me like the Hitchcockian idea of film and what Hitchcock did and what other people later followed, like Tim Burton, for example, and Edward Scissorhands, where it's this like suburban idyllic setting with the bright colors and the cookie cutter houses and the whole thing before it pans over to the big scary dark house on the hill.
Of course. Yeah, the Addams Family Manor.
Seems normal, which I love that house.
Love it.
I want that house.
In every rendition.
It's
every
fantastic.
rendition of the Addams Family, their house is incredible.
It's great.
Although, I will say, in Wednesday, it's still pretty nice, though.
Sure. It's not...
The Addams Family and the Addams Family Values, though.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yes.
That.
Beautiful. Love it.
My heart.
But point being, where, like, going back to what Hitchcock did, where, like, it would be a normal setting, and Serling really did that here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because from the first 2-3 minutes of the episode, you have no idea, because it starts out like every other episode of The Twilight Zone.
Right. It's just a dude working in an office. It's very straightforward. And I want to say Hitchcock and Serling, they were working around the same time, right? Hitchcock was later in his career, I believe, when Twilight Zone came out.
Because he had been doing it since silent film era. So
right, but he was still working.
They would be considered contemporaries, yeah.
Sure, that's a word. So I wonder if Serling got his influence from Hitchcock, or if that had just become kind of the standard of the time for your horrors and psychological thrillers and things like that. Which I think the Twilight Zone at the time was considered a suspense thriller kind of thing. Although obviously
definitely
looking
more.
back in 2024, it doesn't hold up to what we today would consider a psychological thriller.
For sure.
But Black Mirror certainly
Right.
did their damnedest to kind of rope the genre back into that
Bring it
vibe and did a hell of a job.
Well, and
we should think about doing Black Mirror once we're
I think so.
caught up on or just bored of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah. Which, I mean, how dare you? Bored of the Twilight
Sorry,
Zone.
bored of talking about the Twilight Zone.
That's more accurate.
Our lead actor in this one is Howard Duff, which I'll get to his info in a minute. But on the topic of names,
Yes.
I'm not going to complain about his name.
Okay.
It was actually I was just while I was reading information on this one, I came across his name, and it occurred to me that some listeners are going to have jumped to where I'm going already. Some of the younger viewers may not. Duff is not a last name that I have personally come across a lot in film and TV.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't feel like it's
Barring,
a particularly
like Hillary
strange name, but Hillary and whatever her sister's name was, they're the only Duffs that I am personally familiar with outside of now Howard. You know, you've got Duff, the bassist from Guns N' Roses. Holy crap. My brain just broke there for a second.
Okay, you can't see this, but I watched the processing happen in that pause.
Yeah, no, she just watched the gears behind my eyes as they skipped over each other, failing to lock into anything.
It was a glitch without the twitch.
There was an internal twitch, I promise.
I didn't see it.
So it makes me wonder if there's any relation between the two. I know it's unlikely, but excuse me. It just makes me wonder if there's a relation there. I didn't bother to check, but I'd be interested to find out if that's like a great grandpa or something.
It would have to be.
Well, on the time frame, yeah. Definitely not gonna be an uncle. I hope. Holy shit. Howard Duff portrays the leading character Arthur Curtis. Also, Gary Reagan as our lead is two people in this one. He was born November 24, 1913, died July 8th, 1990. Spanned over 43 years. Started in radio, had 140 acting credits to his name. He's known for his voice as radio's Sam Spade.
Which means something to somebody, I'm sure.
I'm sure it means something to somebody, but it's also radio's Sam Spade, which makes me think that was probably before you and I started listening to radio. In reality, well, we've got dates here: 1946 to 1950. So just a smidgen before I was capable of turning that dial. And that, excuse me, that was before he ever made it to screen.
Whoa! So he had 140 credits before he even showed his face.
That does look like the implication, yeah.
Huh? Man, the good old days of radio dramas. They're coming back, dude. Actor.
They're coming back. They're coming back in a big way. Like,
I'll have to get some suggestions from you because I need a new thing.
Dude, oh hey, we were doing that before. We were making suggestions at the end of the episode on stuff we thought people should check out. We should bring that back because that's dope. And there's a
plethora.
There's a lot of podcasts, a lot of drama stuff out there right now. The market is flooded in a good way. His film career started to dry up at the end of the golden era, the 50s. Luckily for him, he moved on to TV shows and made a whole lot of guest appearances. One series, Mr. Adam and Eve, 1957 to 1958, he starred in 66 episodes alongside his real-life wife, Ida Lupino. Sorry for that pronunciation. Additionally, he
sounded right to me.
Okay, I hope it sounded right to anybody else as well. Additionally, he was in Dante for 26 episodes in 1960, and The Felony Squad in 1966. He was in 73 of those.
Wow. All right.
Don't mind the hard cuts. It's just me being bad.
Now I'm curious about the Howard Duff, Hillary Duff thing. Right. Also, I'm really glad that she made her way back to screens.
Tony, can you look up if Howard Duff and Hillary Duff are related in any way?
We have a Tony?
We have a Tony.
Since when do we have a Tony?
No, he's in the other room. You can't see him.
Oh, the Wizard of Oz curtain.
I mean, I just stuffed him in a broom closet, but yeah.
Does he have one of those cool headpieces, like earpieces you can hear you talking?
He's got a set of Apple earbuds,
Neat.
But he does not have an Apple device to hook them to. And in short, no. Howard Duff is not in any way related to Hillary. However, while Tony was looking that up, there's this interesting thing that has started happening with Google searches in my experience, in that the first thing that pops up now, if you just Google a question, is that the Search Labs AI will kick out an overview answer. Always. And it's most of the time I found it to be fairly accurate. I still won't rely on it entirely if the matter is important. In something like, is Howard Duff related to Hillary Duff? Google says no. So I believe him. However, some of the other things that pop up immediately upon asking that question, we're not the first people, mind, to ask this question.
Oh, that's comforting.
Yeah, so you got Gina Star, which appears to be a genealogy website of some sort. Somebody asked that question. It's not answered in the little blurb that pops up, just a link to Hillary Duff's family tree if you want to pay whatever their price is. Then you've got the Wikipedias, the IMDb's. What really interests me, though, is this first pop-up from Answers.com.
Mm-hmm. The trusted source.
The trusted source of untrustable sources. The question posed by some user of this website is, how is Hillary Duff related to Howard Duff?
I mean, that's good
straightforward,
phrasing.
Good question. The answer that it kicked out for this unfortunate user is let me quote here. No, Hillary Duff is a girl, not a boy. Hillary Duff's Twitter is @HillaryDuff.
Perfect. Excellent. Nailed it.
Hey, Answers.com, are you okay? Hey, how you doing over there, bud?
Have you slept much?
At all, maybe?
Are you hydrating? Taking your vitamins?
Has anybody updated your security, your firmware, ever?
Do you need the hard sleep?
Do you need a blue screen? Do you need a blue screen, Answers? I think Answers needs a blue screen.
We're not gonna get that answer, ironically.
Yeah, I mean, if I bet I could type. I'm not going to, dear listener, I promise I won't, but I could probably type in Answers.com, hey, Answers, how you doing? And get something like, no, Hillary Duff is a girl in response. Hey, woof.
I'm going to move on now.
Let's move on. Holy hell.
Before we get any further down this rabbit trail.
I can't get any further down. My leg is stuck.
I will help in a moment. David White portrayed the character of Brinkley, the agent to Arthur/Jerry. And I think it's Jerry, not Jerry.
Did I say Gary?
I think you said
It's
Gary.
Definitely Jerry.
It's Jerry with a G. It's easily to,
It's GE, though. That's obviously Jerry. Go, Konr.
Anyway.
You're good at this podcasting stuff.
You
Hey,
are-
Konr, are you okay?
You are good at this podcasting stuff.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome. Agent to Arthur/Jerry. He was born April 4th, 1916, and died November 27th, 1990.
Another 1990. Wow. 2 of them bad boys in a row.
Yeah, he had 133 acting credits in his career, mostly one-off episodes in multiple TV series. I'm not even going to list all of them here. But his most famous and longest run was as Larry Tate in 191 episodes of Bewitched, which the original series.
I mean, you don't have to hold. You can keep
I will keep talking.
going. I want to know what character that is because I don't recognize the name, but I love the show.
Yeah, Larry Tate of Bewitched. From 1964 to 1972, he continued to be active in the theater. In the Theater West.
He played Darren's boss, the angry ginger with a mustache.
He continued to be active in Theater West Company in Los Angeles, often shooting and performing simultaneously. That's cool.
That's not unimpressive. So I'd be interested to know how he managed that.
Back when it was harder to do that.
It had to have been, right? Like, couldn't set up a digital camera on autofocus and auto track and just do your fucking thing.
Yeah.
Had to have something going
into that. It had to been like manually.
I wonder if by shooting they just mean he was like in charge of the
so like directing and performing simultaneously.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, it's been done by many people.
Yeah, it's been done by a lot. I'd be more impressed if he was actually operating the camera though.
We should find out.
Indeed. Next up, we have Frank Maxwell, who portrays the character of the director, Marty Fisher. Frank was born November 17th in 1916 in the Bronx, New York. I don't think there's a "the" there. I'm from San Diego. I could be wrong. but I feel like that's just supposed to be in Bronx.
I'm not from New York. I don't know.
I don't know. If you're familiar with would that be the syntax? Silence tells me we don't know. Tony?
Tony doesn't know either.
Tony doesn't know either. Okay, if you know if it's supposed to be Bronx or the Bronx, let us know, because I don't know.
Everybody says the Bronx, though.
Everybody does say the Bronx, but when I see it written out, it feels wrong.
Is that like the 5?
When referring to the I-5?
Nobody refers to, well, at least here in Oregon, nobody refers to I-5 as the 5. That's a California thing.
No, it's definitely a California thing, yeah.
Because when I've said it, I've gotten looked at.
Yeah, no, people give you dirty looks if you throw it.
Or the 99.
Yeah, yeah. I still do it.
I do too.
It feels weird to not.
I can't just call it I-5 or Highway 99. It's weird. Anyway, moving on.
No, I-5 feels so empty. Why? It's the I-5.
Yeah.
Like, it's the 5 or the I-5. It needs the V. It's the only one.
Much like the Bronx.
Yeah, I don't agree.
Read it again and take out the.
Born November 17th, 1916 in Bronx, New York.
That doesn't feel weird to you?
No, that feels less weird to me.
All right.
But I'm from San Diego. What the fuck do I know? It's not the San Diego. And no, it doesn't translate to the whale's vagina, no matter how many times Anchorman Will Ferrell says that San Diego directly translates to the whale's vagina, and it's a question I've been asked probably 100 times in my life. When people find out I'm from San Diego, inevitably, like 1 in 5 will be like, does that actually mean the whale's vagina?
Because they heard it from Anchorman?
Because they heard it on Anchorman, yeah. I've just started saying yes, because I want to be able to filter those people out of a crowd should I ever need to.
That is the only correct answer.
He passed away on August 4th, 2004 in Santa Monica. So many in Santa Monica. Seems to have been a popular retirement.
It is the place to die, yeah.
Oh, woof, that's not going to be great for their tourism board. He had 159 acting credits, and despite being amongst the actors blacklisted in the McCarthy era of the 50s, he still managed to be in every seminal series in the later 50s, among them being Perry Mason, Peter Gunn, The Twilight Zone, Rawhide, Hitchcock Presents, The Fugitive, the whole spectrum.
Mm-hmm. The whole gamut.
Which is not unimpressive, again. Although the more of these actors we cover and look into, I'm finding the blacklist
was extensive.
It was extensive and also didn't seem to be super heavily dictated.
Everybody.
Like it seems like everybody was a suspected communist. Everybody was blacklisted from something, and everybody was still working. Mm-hmm. Which makes me wonder, what's the fucking point?
It's like a black market for those blacklisted, so they could still find work.
Was it that, or was it just like somebody was like, "Hey, you communist, you've been blacklisted," and then you, Frank Maxwell, went, "All right, I'm just going to call Hitchcock and see if he has any work for me."
Or maybe it was like a select few that you had to, like, in order to qualify as blacklisted, you had to be turned down by like 4 different directors. Or like a set number of directors. We're just spitballing right now.
Yeah, no, again, if you're familiar with the McCarthy era blacklisting of what seems to be every non-Republican actor of the time, let us know. Mind, I say seems like because I don't know enough to know, but that's how it seems based on the information we've come across. We weren't actually
alive during that time.
No, I wasn't even a glint in my dad's eye. My dad's eye hadn't started glinting yet, I don't think.
That's good.
Hi, Dad. I assume you're listening to this for... I said there's zero chance my dad listens to the show. He's like our whole target audience, and he's not even listening.
But if you are, hi, Dad.
Oh, yeah, if you are, hi, Dad. Who else we got? I think we only got 1 or 2 left, right?
One left. One left. Yeah. Eileen Ryan portrays the character of Jerry Reagan / Arthur Curtis's wife, Nora Reagan.
Oh, God, they gave the wife a name.
Which doesn't happen often.
Look at them go, progressive. She
was born October 16th, 1927 in Bronx, New York.
Okay, all right, Tony. All right, Tony, what the shit? Why'd I get a V? She didn't get a V.
And died October 9th.
I'm on fire, Tony.
Whoa, wow. She lived a really long time. She died October 9th, 2022 in Malibu. So like 2 years ago.
Damn near 100 years old.
Yeah.
What does that make her? 95 when she died? Math?
Math. 95, that's right.
In Malibu. What a place to just wither away and die.
She was best known for Feast, 2005, Parenthood, 1989, and Eight-Legged Freaks in 2002.
Tony, I need a picture of Eileen. What the hell was...
She had a total of 63 acting credits in her whole career, which is a really long time to be alive and have 63 acting credits, most of which were one-off episodes and lesser-known movies. Oh, fun fact, she's the mother of Sean Penn.
Oh, shit. Yeah, of course she was in Eight-Legged Freaks.
I didn't see it, so I don't know.
I know of her as Sean Penn's mom, not...
Really?
Yeah, not a person.
How do you know of her as Sean Penn's mom?
Because I'm a fan of Sean Penn, and she comes up a fair amount. I don't know that I've ever heard...
What does she look like?
I don't know that I've ever heard her referenced by name. Let's see.
Eileen Ryan Penn.
I want to say I've only ever heard of her referred to as Eileen Penn, and I don't think I've heard that very often. Tony, give me something. Was she a director? Was she a producer at some point? Anything else she did with her life? Or was she just like a person existing that happened to be in Hollywood?
She was the wife of Leo Penn, who was a director.
Okay, I knew that some member of his family was a director.
His dad, apparently.
And then, of course, I mean, that's, boom, there you go. Learned something that you didn't know you knew.
I guess.
Woof. We got to find a way to do deep dives into some of these people, because there are so many of the actors we talk about on this that have
remarkable careers,
just
and lives.
Insane careers. That we talk about a show that these people are on, and most of them I've never heard of.
Right.
Like several of them I've seen in other productions, mostly fucking Rawhide, if I'm being honest.
It's a fault of the era.
In Rawhide, but I feel like there's got to be a way that we can like do a deep dive discussion on some of these people in particular, rather than like just, it feels like we're not doing them justice by giving them 30 to 45 to 60 seconds during an episode, when, I mean, sure, like this is a perfect example actually, because if you read over the brief, like the amount of time we have allotted for Eileen Ryan, I say allotted as if we allot time for fucking anything. We're professionals, of course. If we read over this, she was an actor from Bronx, starred in a couple of movies that most people have heard of, had 63 acting credits to her name, and that last sentence was the mother of Sean Penn.
Yeah.
And that's fine for our format, for what we're doing. That's all the information we really need to move on and show her the respect of, she was in this episode, she played a role in this episode, this is who she is. Move on with the show. It's not a show about Eileen, it's a show about the Twilight Zone.
Sure.
But that's a woman who was an actor, married to a world-renowned director, who gave birth to a world-renowned son, actor, director. And
his two brothers also. One's an actor and one's a musician, right?
I have no fucking idea. I'm a fan of Sean Penn. I don't know anything about his family, about his life, or about his mother, who was an actor, his father, who was a director. Like, there are so... All right. I'm going to pitch it right now.
Okay.
I say we start another podcast.
Okay.
Called the Twilight Zone.
And?
Where we just do deep dives on actors,
the actors
of the Twilight Zone. The Twilight Zone. the Twilight Zone.
What about
the McElroys will probably sue us for that.
Can't tread into that territory.
If I was going to tread into anybody's territory and feel safe about it, it would be the McElroys.
Sure. I mean,
I love you boys.
Guys, if you're listening.
And you, Cliff. That's too mean. I'm sorry, Clint. If you ever hear this, I'm sorry. That wasn't nice. If you're listening, though, seriously, what's up? Monster Factory, though. No, this is a podcast for the McElroys now.
I don't know that one.
Monster Factory?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a YouTube show that Griffin and Justin do, where they play a video game, but it's mostly based around the create a character mode, where they just create the most horrific, nightmare-fueled demon monstrosity of a character they can, which create a character systems leaves so much room for if you're willing to just kind of ignore physics
and go nuts
and go absolutely cray cray. And they do it, and it's terrifying, and I don't like it, but I enjoy watching the show.
Cool.
We have to stop talking about the McElroys.
Also, we should probably talk about the episode.
We have to move on, or I'm just going to talk about their products.
That's fun so far.
I can't help it. The McElroy line of products is huge.
It's true.
And it's all good.
What is your favorite moment of this episode? Do you have one?
My favorite moment of this episode, it's not so much a moment. I have a favorite part of this episode, but it's not so much a moment in that my favorite aspect of this episode is Nora Reagan.
Yes.
Is the character of Nora Reagan, our main character's wife, soon to be ex-wife, as we find out during the episode, because she is just so fucking set on he's gonna sign these papers. They're going to get divorced, and she's gonna get half because she's earned that, to the point that she ignores what is a blatant mental illness in her soon to be ex-husband, who is convinced
his breakdown,
who is having a complete mental breakdown of some sort. She references it several times, and I believe it even says something to the effect of,
"You're cracked."
Like you're cracked, but that's not going to stop you from signing these papers. She's not a good person. This
and she
character Nora.
She drove him to his supposed house.
Yeah.
Right?
She drives him to the house that he thinks he lives in. That's his character's address.
It's the made-up address, which the fact that they were able to do that, I mean, this is like breaking the fourth wall and all that jazz, but like, it's a fictional character with a fictional address. So it's a fictional character with a fictional address. And the fact that Nora is able to take Jerry by car to this supposed location is wild. If you think about it too much, right?
Maybe I'm not thinking about it enough. What's the problem?
It's a fictional address. It shouldn't exist.
Yeah, but this is
and yet
also...
they drove to the supposed address. And more importantly, he freaks out a neighborhood child by seeing little girl in pigtails from the back and yelling at his supposed daughter's name at her.
Doesn't he like grab her by the shoulders too? It's super fucking wily.
It's not okay. And little girl freaked out, and her mom runs over, and she's like, "Mommy, that man grabbed me!" And then they drive away.
Tony, what year did we stop using telephone numbers in TV shows? You find that for me real quick.
Telephone numbers or addresses?
Telephone numbers specifically, because there was a time when we stopped using actual numbers because there were too many phone numbers now. It was too likely you're going to use a real phone number. Nobody wanted that 8675309 lawsuit bullshit happening again.
Sure.
Let's see. So it was in the 60s that telephone companies began encouraging the use of 555 for TVs and movies because it was an unassigned dialing code. Thank you, Tony. You are doing the Lord's work. Which makes me wonder, since this came out in 60, I believe. Is that right? I can just scroll up here real quick.
The one that was aired?
60, yeah. So this one aired in 1960, which makes me wonder if we hadn't, as a people, started using obviously fake
addresses,
identifiers.
Yeah.
Because if telephone companies didn't start suggesting or encouraging, hey, use 555, that one doesn't lead anywhere, then there's a chance that we hadn't actually run into, the 8675309 lawsuit, or an issue with people going to random people's houses because their address had shown up on a TV show or movie. It's entirely possible that they just picked an address from a neighborhood that sounded good for the episode.
I mean, I'm 100% certain that it was filmed on the backlots anyway. But the point being, it's a fictional, like, within the fiction, Arthur is the actor. I mean, is the character. And he was going to the he had her drive him to the fictional address.
Right. My point is that today that wouldn't make sense.
No.
Because we would know that fictional character probably had a fictional address that didn't actually exist.
But over the time.
But there's a chance
I see what you're saying.
that wasn't weird.
I misunderstood what you're saying. I get it now.
Like it'd be, maybe it just wasn't that big a deal. Maybe it wouldn't have seemed odd at the time.
That makes sense. I get it. Which I didn't make that connection initially, but that was wild. It also says a lot about supposed mental health, which we know was not discussed during this time frame, both in film or in life.
So I would argue it was discussed a lot more in film and TV than it ever would have been in a household.
Sure.
But yeah, no, it was
also the like fictionalized hysteria version.
Oh yeah, it was definitely, especially at the time, it was always an exaggerated.
Because what the
craziness
director in the episode tells Arthur or Jerry, I can't remember who is who now.
It literally couldn't matter less. It's the same guy.
Arthur Curtis was the character.
Yes.
Jerry Reagan was the actor. Okay, so the director tells, what was his name again? He was Frank Maxwell. So the director, Marty Fisher, tells Jerry Reagan, the actor, hey, you just need to get some rest. Clearly you're exhausted.
You've been working too many 14-hour days.
Not seeing it as, hey, this dude's legit having a mental breakdown. And the fact that, when he comes back to the set, I was too far away. He comes back to the set and is, going through the set and, picking up the pictures and all the things off of his desk and, getting things ready to go. They were just super cool about it. He when the initial thing happens where he starts looking bewildered, they initially think that, oh, he forgot his lines. And then when it becomes apparent that he's agitated, the director's like, oh, you just need some rest. You're not having a nervous breakdown. You're fine. You've been working those 14-hour days and you need to sleep. And I don't know, it just becomes less talked about the more erratic this guy gets, outside of the character of Nora, who frankly is like a cat on catnip.
Yeah, okay. So shit, there's a lot in that sentiment or that idea. Cuz again, we say this a lot, but we do have to consider that there's a 60-year time gap.
Sure. Between
these episodes being recorded during their normal time and today,
in the society
you and I are talking about them.
Yeah.
And I'm never going to be somebody who uses it was a different time as a reasonable excuse.
But it was.
It's an excuse. I wouldn't call it a reasonable one. In the case of a TV show, I would call it a reasonable excuse. In the case of somebody who is alive today, it is not a reasonable excuse. Being 60 years old and saying, oh, but it was just a different time. That's fine when talking about something that was recorded 60 years ago and cannot have changed because it was recorded. And it is what it will always be because it was recorded in history. A person who refuses to learn or evolve or accept that maybe they were wrong in what they believed 30 years ago, it was a different time is not a reasonable excuse. It's a cop-out. It's an attempt to tell you I'm not willing. It was different back then, or it was a different time, or I'm just too old for this, or I'm too old to change, whatever the case may be, are all synonyms for I'm too lazy to change.
Right.
Or I'm not interested in change, whatever the case may be. Mm-hmm. And this is a slight deviation from my primary point, but it stands because I don't want anybody listening to think that when I say, well, it was the 60s, that what I'm doing is making an excuse for the shitty way that humans were in the 60s. In the 60s, it wasn't shitty. Nobody thought it was shitty. It's just how things were.
Right. It's coming off of the 40s and 50s.
Right. It was more progressive than the 50s.
That school of thought.
The 50s were more progressive than the 40s.
This is early enough in the 60s, though, that it's still on the coattails.
It's still on the coattails of the 50s.
50s ideologies.
And my point there being, I don't want anybody listening to think that I am making an excuse for shitty behavior, because that's not what I'm doing. I'm looking at a piece of art that cannot change and saying, this is what I believe is why this is how it is.
Right. Well, and the ideologies are vastly different. It's not, I don't even think it's so much that it's not just like it was just the 60s. The focus is also on the fact that things were not dialogued about in the way that they are now. I mean, there's multiple episodes on actors and people having, I mean, even within this series so far, in the 22 that we've now seen.
Several references to people having nervous breakdowns of one sort or another.
And there's always this air of mystery around it. But, like, we know that therapy wasn't widely talked about.
Well, so not only was it not widely talked about, like, let me, if I can put a time frame into perspective for you. Tittycut Folis. Do you remember Tittycut Folis?
No.
Film. I don't remember if I ever watched it with you or if I just told you about it. But
I think you told me about it, but it's been a while.
It was a documentary that went through a mental health clinic.
Oh, yes. Yes, I remember this.
And documented all of the horrific shit that people were living through, the absolutely horrendous living conditions, the way people were treated. It was frankly fucking disturbing, and it was a accurate representation of how asylums were running at the time. That came out in 1967. So that came out 7 years after this episode aired, which is 8 years before the last episode aired that referenced a mental breakdown, I think.
Yeah.
Nothing in the system changed immediately following Tittycut Folis coming out in 1967. It wasn't until several years later that anything occurred that would suggest, oh, this is not okay.
Well, and I also don't think that this is a scenario of, like, life represents art, art represents life.
No. My point is just that if 7 years after this episode came out, a documentary came out that would change how America looked at mental health, not fix it, not
do anything about it.
Didn't make any huge fucking changes on the topic, but it got people talking in a way that they weren't talking before that documentary came out. That was 7 years after this episode aired, which means at the time that this episode aired, even if people were discussing mental health, it wasn't going to make it onto an episode of The Twilight Zone.
Sure.
Rod Serling wasn't going to fucking put his neck out on the line and be like, you know what we should talk about? This hysteria stuff. Maybe we got it wrong. Brain daddy or not.
Sure.
The man was doing a job. He was working. He was trying to get a paycheck. He was trying to do what he loved doing to earn money.
And a product of his time writing about things he knew.
And he was a product of his time writing about what he knows. And I'll tell you right now, it was the 60s. It was recorded and released in the 60s. If I met Rod Serling today and he still had some of the fucking attitudes, I'd slap the shit out of him.
Fair enough.
It's not an excuse. It's just a reason. We should definitely not do an episode on Tittycut Folis. I don't think I got the stomach to watch that whole thing again.
How did you come across it?
How did I find out about it, or how did I get my hands on a copy of it?
Both.
So I came across it from a frankly crazy dude that I met when I was on the road. When I mentioned that I used to work in ILS, we had a long drunken discussion about schizophrenia specifically, and the effects of and dealing with, in my case, dealing with clients, and in his case, dealing with family members.
I remember the text messages that followed that conversation.
Yeah, no, it got wily. He was a very interesting person that had a lot of very interesting thoughts on the topic.
Sure.
I don't know if any amount of interesting or education would have undone the amount of liquor that was shared between us on that evening. That conversation got wily. But he had mentioned that if I was a student of mental health, which at the time I was very much a student of mental health, that I should watch this documentary. And when I went looking for it, I found out that it had been banned in every country that took an interest in banning media of any kind, including the United States. It had been, I want to say that ban was lifted here some years ago, but it had been banned everywhere. Like you couldn't fucking buy a copy of it.
Wow.
Couldn't be done. I ended up getting a copy from somebody I met at a D&D game several years later when I had brought up that I was on a hunt for a copy of this movie. And he's like, oh, yeah, I got that off of LimeWire years ago, and I can burn you a copy of it if you want. And I was like, okay, I'm never going to fucking see you again. And he showed up to Adventure League the next week to give me a
wow
copy of the documentary. it was after he got me that copy of the documentary that I found out that ban had been lifted several years before, and I could have got it on Amazon had I been a user of Amazon at the time.
The black market, LimeWire.
Well, Amazon was still selling like mostly fucking books. Like, I probably could have got it on Amazon, but now that I'm thinking about it, I think they were still selling mostly books. Hey kids, did you know that Amazon used to be a bookstore? They used to sell books.
Do you remember Borders?
Of course I remember Borders.
I miss Borders.
I practically lived in Borders.
They were better than...
Whoa, they weren't better than anybody. Everybody has their value. Every company has their reason to be appreciated.
They had a different smell.
And if they smell better. They smell better than that company that we're not going to name. They also had better selection of books, friendlier staff,
better coffee,
better prices. On a completely unrelated topic, Barnes & Noble, sponsor us, yo.
We've lost the plot. We've officially lost the plot. What are we talking about?
What fucking plot?
What are we doing?
Oh, what's your takeaway from this episode? What do you think the moral of this episode was intended to be? And I frame that question that way because I do not believe that what they wanted the moral to be is the moral that comes across.
So before I get to that, I want to talk about the ending because we were talking about resolutions, right?
Guys, it's aliens.
In that. There you go. Just kill the whole thing. Hashtag spoiler alert. No, the ending where the character of Arthur Curtis gets a proper ending.
Yes.
Not enough is discussed about that because they're much like Hitchcock. There are very few actual resolutions in these very short episodes. And I really love the ending. He goes back to the set, which he sees as his office. He's putting things away and pictures. Like do you remember there was something about the picture on his desk? The family photo that he had of him, his daughter, and his wife. And then didn't they disappear or something towards the end? Like there was some trick photography that happened. Am I misremembering that?
I don't remember.
Because
that doesn't mean it didn't happen.
It's been a little bit since I've seen the actual episode. But I remember specifically the ending where his fictitious wife comes to the office. And then he's like, let's go on that vacation or something because the episode starts with him asking his receptionist about the vacation that's booked. And
because his daughter has a birthday party or something that
they were going on a vacation of some sort.
Oh, I thought he was trying to get
like
time off for
tickets.
a birthday party.
It was like airplane tickets or something that he had asked her to. Anyway, point being, whatever arrangements were arranged, he looked at his fictional wife and was like, yeah, let's go do the thing. And then they just kind of metaphorically, that's the word, metaphorically walk off into the sunset. And the character of Arthur Curtis is at peace because he's back where he's
home.
Is familiar.
He's back in his life. And so
Jerry Reagan disappears.
This is a topic that I wanted to bring up, but then we went on some tangents. You specifically went on some tangents, and I was here to wrangle it back in.
This is recorded, so...
Yeah, anybody listening will remember exactly how I said it, because that's how it happened.
It's not, but I won't wait for you to fix that. Go on.
That's good. I'm not going to. So the ending of this episode it works really well for the episode. It's kind of a happy ending for the episode.
Yeah.
But if you look any deeper than the surface of, yes, happy resolved ending, maybe not you, maybe not anybody listening, but when I look a little bit deeper, it doesn't feel happy. It feels like a very, very sad ending.
Like he succumbed to the...
Like he is completely succumbed to whatever illness he is dealing with.
Yeah, and he's completely lost
his break has went from building to broke.
Does that not fall in line with ignorance is bliss, though?
I don't believe that ignorance is bliss. So it probably falls in line with it, yes, but at the same time...
Only in that the character of Arthur Curtis, regardless of Jerry Reagan's mental state...
I don't think you can have an Arthur
fully happy
despite Jerry's mental state, because they are one and the same.
Yeah, once he's broke, the difference he's fully Arthur, and not.
That doesn't mean Jerry ain't there. It doesn't mean that Jerry didn't exist. Jerry's still got a kid and a angry wife and a job and friends. Like Jerry still exists. Arthur just doesn't know about him. Like, him and Arthur have never met.
And maybe that's okay.
It's probably for the best. It would probably be very traumatic if they did. But for both of them and all of their friends and loved ones. But co-stars. It doesn't feel happy to me.
Why?
For all of the reasons I've spent the last 5 minutes talking about. It doesn't feel like a happy ending. Arthur gets his happy ending. That's fine. He is happy. He's getting what he wants.
But Jerry Reagan and the concerned...
Jerry, his soon-to-be ex-wife, his co-workers, his kid, I think they had a kid.
His manager.
His manager.
They didn't have
a kid. Okay, so that little girl with pigtails, she might worry about him.
She's more excited to be away from him.
She's probably just happy he's gone.
Yeah. But his manager.
If you look deeper than just what we get to see, there's a lot of potentially sad in that ending.
Sure.
If we take it at face value, it's just Arthur is Arthur, had a slight mental break, became Jerry for a little bit, and then we end with Arthur is back to Arthur. That's fine. But that's not what it is. It gives distinct vibes of Jerry is Jerry. And in media res, we don't get to see the break happen. And we come in and the break already exists, and we get a slight view into the window of broken Jerry.
And Jerry believes that Arthur exists.
And then we get to see that window get closed. And we're on this side of it with Arthur. And everybody that knows Jerry and Jerry's whole life is on the other side of it. And we're just here like, yes, we started this episode in media res mid mental breakdown, and we're ending it with the closure of accepting the mental breakdown and being happy about it.
I really like that progression though. Okay, I think on the whole,
from a storytelling standpoint, hell yeah.
Yeah.
It's very well done. It's a great episode.
I think our perspectives, though vastly different, are it lends to the fact that we can agree on the fact that the storytelling from beginning to end, just kind of whichever side of that you're on, it
right, the right side or your side.
Yeah. Thanks.
Anytime. I don't know. If you find the ending happy, I suppose that means it's happy. You know, it's art. Art is subjective. Art should be subjective.
Sure.
But that's what makes it art.
That's not discrediting what you're saying, too, because I see it.
Of course not. I'm right.
Stop.
I'm trying so hard.
You're not.
Not even a little bit.
Nope.
Anywho.
I'm
not going to start.
I know. It's, I don't know. It's good. Either way you look at it, whatever perspective you want to take, whatever angle you want to take, this is a very good episode.
It is good. And it's a good ending.
Why I'm giving it 5 marbles.
5 marbles. You know, name somebody's firstborn child. A World of Difference.
I mean, you know.
It's a terrible name.
Or Arthur and Jerry. Or
Eli wouldn't even use that name.
Could go with the acronym.
WAD? AWAD?
AWAD, yeah.
This is my son, AWAD. AWAD, say hi to the nice gentleman. Yes, he's a police officer. Obviously, he's at our trailer.
I like the perspective from what the viewer sees, from how it is portrayed from the beginning to the end.
100%.
The way that it was intended to be viewed, and that is why I'm giving it 5 marbles.
Oh, I think it is. It is ballsy to suggest that is how it was supposed to be viewed.
Choices were made.
Yes. I only say that because I feel like there is a chance that Rod had a similar idea in mind to my point when deciding that it was going to end with him getting back on the set, not getting back with his wife. I might be wrong.
Well, it was duly written, so it could be Mr. Matheson's doing as well.
It could be. It's actually more likely to be Mr. Matheson's doing because Rod was not a huge fan of concluding his stories.
That's why we have an ending.
Because, guys, it's aliens. It's always aliens.
What is your marble rating?
I'm going to give it a 4.
Okay.
It is a good episode. I enjoy the episode. I enjoy the episode very much.
Mm-hmm.
It is not 5-star worthy in my opinion, but it is very good.
We can both agree that it's better than 16mm Shrine.
There's nothing better than 16mm.
Couldn't even get that one out.
Didn't even try to get that one out. It's a 16 millimeter. Guys, if you haven't listened to the episode on 16 millimeter Shrine, don't.
It was painful, like pulling teeth.
I mean, you can listen to you can listen to our episode talking about it. I wouldn't advise spending 30 minutes watching it.
And also, regardless of the rabbit trails and digressions on this particular episode.
What digressions?
Because there were a couple. I do think that this one is worth a rewatch.
Oh, definitely.
Like, especially if you haven't seen it or you've seen it, but it's been many years. Like, I don't know. I would be interested in hearing some commentary. If are we still doing the social thing?
The social medias?
Like, we still have, when we have an active email, right? Still? Maybe? No?
Yes, question mark. Oh, yeah. Tony. Tony, quick, answer the question.
You can come out of your closet in a minute.
You can come out of your closet when I've decided you're done here. wwucast@gmail.com.
Hey, that's the one.
That's the one.
If you feel...
Again, WWU, it's Wander with us, wwucast@gmail.com. That's an empty coffee cup. I've picked it up for the third time.
Don't sip that. It's going to be disappointing.
Yeah, it's disappointing just to pick it up.
Yeah, but if you have anything you'd like to say and you do want to email us there, I will look at it.
Yeah, we'll read the email. I mean, we've read every email that's come in now. We've got a couple of ones that were worth reading.
Yeah, and not only will I read it, I'll actually respond.
Hey, look at that. I won't.
I will. I like email. That part of the 90s, early aughts never left me.
Email in the 90s. Jesus Christ.
Late
Do you
90s.
want to spend 75 minutes listening to dial-up sounds so that you can write a 2-sentence email?
No, that's where AOL Messenger came in.
I never had AOL Messenger.
And the ding.
I had the AOL disk that you had to put in to get access to the interwebs.
Nice.
It was not good.
I had the endless and forever droning of the dial-up tone. Forever and always. That sound still haunts my sleep.
The disc, I still had to deal with the dial-up sound.
Oh, see, I didn't have disc. I didn't know. And ours was hard Linden, which meant that any time my grandma picked up the phone...
Oh, yeah, internet was gone.
I was booted.
Didn't matter what you were doing.
And we had to wait
God
another hour
forbid you be 3
again.
hours into downloading a single song.
Dude, I was just painting shit. Like, I was halfway through my masterpiece.
Yo, MS Paint. Like, if you didn't grow up with MS Paint being the only usable program...
Or Solitaire.
Solitaire doesn't count. It's still on every like, my phone came with Solitaire. I still play it, too.
So,
God, I love
but,
it.
like, the OG Solitaire...
The OG like with a deck of cards?
No.
You can do that now. I got a deck of cards. You want to play Solitaire?
One. I'm talking about the one on the screen. On the computer.
Don't think that's OG.
For that time,
digital.
Okay.
It's a digital card game. The card game is definitely the OG.
But the digital format is not what it is now.
No, it's much better now. Yeah.
I liked it better then.
That's like saying you like Tetris on a Nintendo more than
What
you
was
like
the
it
other
on a
one?
phone.
Minesweeper?
Minesweeper.
Yeah.
I always hated Minesweeper. I was 30 years old before I learned how to play that fucking game.
Did you actually learn how to play
I
it?
did learn how to play
I
it.
died every time.
Yeah, me too, and I still do, despite knowing how it works now.
You have to show me how it works.
Yeah, I'll teach you.
Cool.
If there's a number, that means there's a mine touching that block.
Hey, that's the whole thing.
It's literally the whole thing.
There's so many numbers
If
there.
you click on a box and it says 1, it means one of the boxes touching it is a mine.
But if it has 3?
Click on a box and it says 3, that means 3 of those touching boxes are mine.
Dang.
If you click on it and it says 5, you're not playing the right game. That square shouldn't have 5 sides. It might mean, hey, you just clicked on a bomb. Now you're dead.
Okay.
Because the mine blew up.
So, back to the episode. You have given it 4 marbles.
I did give it 4 marbles.
I have given it 5 marbles.
You did.
Giving it a total of 9.
Giving it a total of 9. Making it rate higher than episode 23, which we both gave 4 stars. 22? Is this 23?
22. This is 23.
This is 23.
Yeah. Hey, what's next week?
So next week is Long Live Walter Jameson. Jameson.
I don't remember
Jameson.
this.
You will remember it when you see it. Oddly enough, IMDb does not have a plot summary for this episode,
Ooh.
which is wild. It's got like 16 submitted reviews and summaries, but it does not have. They don't have their own plot summary for it. So I'm gonna throw one at you off the top of my head.
Okay, go.
Long live Walter Jameson. At a time when things don't matter because nobody knows anything, a history teacher meets his son-in-law, who he then finds in a picture of a bunch of dead Civil War soldiers. Convinced that his new son-in-law fought in the Civil War, he gets crazy and angry. His daughter doesn't understand why.
You're going to have to work on your what if for next week. I like this, though. This is good. And I did remember it when you said that.
What if your son-in-law was dead?
Next week.
That's good, because I was having a bad dream, bud. Hey, bud. How you doing?
I've never heard him make that sound before.
Yeah, you were like half howled into my ankle, dude.
You okay? Are you sleeping still?
No, his eyes are open now. He's stretching. Never heard him make that noise. Super simple plot breakdown for Long Live Walter Jameson. High school teacher. Sorry, not high school. History teacher. I think it's actually at a collegiate level. History teacher meets his daughter's new boyfriend / fiance, maybe. I don't remember.
Isn't he also a faculty member as well? He's a history teacher? Because he teaches... I'm remembering now.
Holy hell. Back it up.
Okay.
Walter Jameson is the history
Was I
teacher.
right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Because Walter Jameson is the history teacher who meets his fiance's father.
Yes.
Fiance's father finds a
Also
picture.
on the faculty.
I believe is also on the faculty of some sort. Finds a picture with somebody in it from the Civil War that looks an awful lot like Walter Jameson. Believes his future son-in-law to be a time traveler from at least the Civil War.
Ooh, maybe we can talk about travelers in that one too. There's a crossover.
If you tell me that I can talk about travelers on the podcast, I'm going to not talk about the Twilight Zone.
We need to start with the Twilight Zone transition.
But we should start with travelers and just talk about travelers.
Which is a great show if you haven't seen it. It is on Amazon Prime.
Write your local governor, your local congressman, your local representative in whatever area of government you have access to. Write them a letter.
Also, Canadian legislation. It's important.
Yes, Canadian legislation, UK legislation, Scotland, Ireland,
Basically, all of the great British territories.
North Africa. Is that a British territory or was it just invaded for a long time?
Yes.
Cool. If you have a government you can write to them and tell them you want a new season of Travelers on
It needs to come back.
On behalf of a couple of podcast hosts who are really big fans of the show. Together we can do it.
Let's make it happen.
You should watch it, though. It's a great show. Next week, we're not talking about Travelers. We definitely will talk about Travelers. Next week, we are talking about Long Live Walter Jameson.
Episode 24.
Boy, how do.
I'm sorry in advance for the amount of editing that has to happen here.
Oh, I'm not editing a single word. Just going to hand our audience and check the tape here. 87 minutes of
Oh my god.
unadulterated just shit spewing at microphones.
Garbage.
Somebody's going to listen to this episode.
Pleasure.
Somebody is going to be listening to this episode. They're going to hear me say 80 some odd minutes. They're going to look over at the timer and see 32 and just be baffled by what the fuck those 50 minutes were.
That's good. I have been Bethany.
I am still Connor. I haven't just been Connor. Like, I'm still Connor. I guess I have also been Connor. I will be Connor. I will have been Connor.
This is really, really taking a philosophical turn. And this has been the Twilight Zone podcast. Wander with us.
Let's take that outro again in a way that's not going to get us sued and fucking kicked off of Spotify.
My brain is mush and my face hurts. And this has been Wonder with Us. Thanks
a podcast. I just want to go to bed.
Thanks for listening.
See you next time.